Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast, where we talk about the nuts and bolts of real estate investing. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe, but usually you say your lovely co-host.
I try and mix it up sometimes. I want to make you feel special when I say lovely, and then I don't want to have you think that it's just norm, so I mix it in.
I get that. I appreciate that. I'll call you lovely today. Hey, everybody, it's Julie Clark with Seattle Investors Club, and I'm with my lovely co-host, Joe Bauer.
That was good. We should have you do that from time to time. That makes me feel good.
Yeah. We should switch it around, right? You feeling good?
I am.
Awesome. Well, tell us where you're at.
I'm right down the street. I told our guest today that I was looking at him right now from the parking lot. So I'm in Seattle. Doesn't give away our guest too much, but
because we have a Seattle Investors Club meeting this weekend. It is that time of the month. Everybody.
Is.
That's right.
But hear this. The van is living in Fargo, North Dakota right now at the airport because I would never park the van at the airport here in SeaTac or in Seattle, but it's $6 a day for the full security parking lot in Fargo, North Dakota.
Holy smokes. How long is the flight from Fargo to Seattle?
Well, you got to fly backwards to Minneapolis, and then you jump over to Seattle. So it took pretty much the whole day, unfortunately, but the flight time was probably 4 hours, something like that. 3.5, 4.
Commitment, bro. That is a long haul. I mean, I guess that's the price you pay for living the good life out on the road there, but dang.
Yeah. And I don't mind flying as long as it's not too bumpy because you can get some solid work done. I'll hunker down and do some writing.
I hear that. So what's up next on the Fantastic Life? I think everybody knows, hopefully because you listen to our podcast on a regular basis, that my partner Joe Bauer is out on the road for a year or who knows how long with his girlfriend Emily, hitting all the national parks. While I'm hitting all the local parks, boom, boom, with my kids. How about that? That's as good as it gets. So what's next?
We're headed to Voyageurs National Park, which is basically, I guess we're supposed to do some canoeing there, is what I hear. And I'm not really sure. They say if the weather's good, you canoe around, and if it's not, then you shouldn't. So we're knocking on wood, and hopefully the weather is good. But we're just basically headed east and kind of northeast to start.
Nice. Well, we trying to find a good transition point. Today on the podcast, we have someone with us that hits the road a lot, but hits the road looking for deals. How's that, guys, for a transition? Hits the road looking for deals, and that's our friend Jared Holland. What's up, Jared? Join us.
Julie, Joe, how are you both?
Great.
How'd you like that transition? Was that?
That was very smooth. That was great. Yeah, I do hunt for deals. That's all I do.
I know you do because you're Mr. Consistent, man. That's what we were just talking about. What should we call this? It could be like a TV show, Flipping Houses or Flipping Seattle with Jared Holland. I think that's what we're going to call that. Flipping Houses. What did I say? Flipping
I like
Seattle
Flipping
with
Seattle.
Jared Holland. Flipping Seattle. Yeah. Okay, that's it. If you're listening to this right now, you already know that's what we called it. So we just made that up on the fly, guys. That's how we roll around here. What's up?
Oh, man.
Happy birthday.
A lot. Thank you. Birthday's tomorrow. So between that, planning the housewarming that I actually kept one of my projects. I don't know if I told you guys that. I did a 500 square foot addition on one of my projects in West Seattle. So I moved in there a few months ago. So that's exciting.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. Getting settled in and then finding the balance between that and just keep trucking forward. Not married, but it's a very popular topic.
You didn't get-
It's a very popular topic, but no rings yet.
No rings yet. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure when the time's right, it'll be quite a production. So, well, awesome, dude. So you're living over in West Seattle now, and one of your own. That's the way to do it, isn't it, man? Good move.
Yeah.
Good move on that.
Yeah.
I sort of
didn't need the cash
for
flow
myself.
stuff.
Yeah. I just did the same thing. I bought a house and then I was going to remodel it, and then I tore it down and I live in it. But I did it like in 2006 at the very peak of the market. So there's a joy for you. Think about.
Yeah, I mean we're getting up there right now too, though. So.
True that. You know what though? There's no good timing. You know, I mean, I guess there could be if you had a crystal ball, but same goes for marriage and babies, Jared. Just keep that in mind.
I know.
Time is the right time. All the right time.
Yeah, you just got to do it.
Right on. Well, Joe, kick us off with our traditional kickoff question so we can get to know our friend Jared a little better.
All right. So, Jared, first question is always the one that people want to know the most. Well, I don't really know. Probably not. But anyway, we want to know it the most. We want to know, like, where did you come from? How did you grow up? How did you get to the point of being a real estate investor? Because I think that background is super important for people. Like, what were the lessons that you learned that made you become this entrepreneur that you are today? So if you want to kick us off and give us your background, love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off by, I'm a Northwest native, so I actually grew up in the San Juan Islands. And for those that don't know where that is, it's about as far northwest as you can get in Washington, basically before you get to Canada. So I grew up in a really small town, which I think helped a lot in terms of motivation. So, you know, growing up there made me want more, I guess. So it made me pretty hungry. Fast forward to a lot of years, I got into commercial construction. So my adult life, I've been in construction since I was about 20 years old now. We started boots on the ground, doing a specialty trade, and I was working, you know, on Microsoft, hospitals, you know, big commercial projects, you know, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So for me, that was always a means. I was swinging a hammer, Julie.
Really?
Now I'm sitting in a suit, but back then I was 30 and swinging a hammer. I enjoyed it though, and to be honest, looking back, I kind of couldn't have planned for a better build up to owning my own, you know, residential redevelopment business, because it all kind of built on itself to get me to this point. When I was in construction in the field, you know, I was managing $250,000 projects towards the end of it, and I was managing up to about 20 people. So I was doing some, you know, pretty big stuff. And this was when I was 23 to 26, kind of in that range.
Nice.
After that, I started to get kind of bored with that portion of construction, and I got out of it, and I was looking for the next thing. And I ended up finding through a friend, College Pro Painters. And do either of you guys know or have heard of them? Yeah. So they're pretty big, I guess, force kind of in the area. They do a lot around colleges just to recruit people, entrepreneurs. And for those that don't know, which are a lot of people, it's essentially a franchise-like model to run a painting business. And so at that time, I was 26, and I was looking for a new kind of profession or something to do. And I always have had in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a business owner. And when a friend brought this up, I was like, this is kind of perfect. Like, I have 5+ years in construction. You know, I've wanted to be a business owner, so I gave it a shot. And I did really well. So I was kind of a shoo-in for the job. For those people that have, you know, potentially interviewed, it's kind of like they just want to get people in the door, and it's very little risk to the company to bring on new people. So I felt like they just handed me the job, which, you know, I'm happy that it worked out. So I did that for the first year, and my first year in the business, I set a pretty high goal for myself, and that was to produce over $170,000 worth of paint jobs over the summer. At the time, it seemed like a massive number, and I didn't even know how I was going to get to that point. But I pushed forward, and during the summer, was when I found real estate for the first time ever in my life, even considering it as, a profession. I was painting someone's house on Mercer Island, and, I'm talking to the homeowners, and my guys are working, and they point to a house across the street that had been sold recently. And they're like, yeah, the people who bought that, they just sold it and they made, $300,000 or something. And I was like, God, that's a huge amount of money. That's crazy. And then I'm talking with them like, yeah, we're going to fix ours up now. We're painting it. And they showed me the inside of their house. They had just remodeled the kitchen, and these people lived there. So it wasn't like an investment for them. Well, it was, but it wasn't, like our investments now. We buy them and flip them. And they walked me through it. And at that moment, it was like, seriously, the heavens opened up and a lightning bolt hit me in the head. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I have to look into this further. And at that point, I made a mental decision to kind of pivot everything towards real estate, just because it seemed really exciting. For one, obviously, like most people say, that allure of that kind of money is very exciting. And then for my background, again, I just thought I could be a perfect shoe-in for it. So after that was when I got the bug. Then I'm thinking about it all the time. Every single estimate that I go to for a paint job, I'm talking to them about real estate. I'm, starting to listen to podcasts. You just get really hungry to learn.
Right.
So at that point was when it, really kind of clicked in.
What's crazy is that you didn't watch a reality TV show or hear something new. You found it on your own. How unique is that these days?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I know now it's kind of everywhere, especially in a good market. And I don't have any family in real estate. Like my family has owned real estate during my life, primary residences, but it had never crossed my mind in any capacity. So it was a really exciting moment for me. And that's when like I said, I got the bug and just wanted to learn as much as I could. And where it really turned into a career decision was at the end of that summer. I actually ended up beating my goal. I produced, I think 180,000, something like that. And I was rookie of the year on the West Coast. I finished 11th in the country, and I just was riding this crazy high. The first time I ever was a business owner. I beat my goal. I'm getting these awards. And at that time, I heard the radio ads that Julie just mentioned.
Yeah.
and I ended up going to one of those. I went to one of those seminars, and I ended up missing the day that they talked about how much it costs, right? So it's a 3-day seminar or whatever. And I was like, I go up and I tell the speaker, hey, I'm really interested in this. I'd love to do this. But I have to be gone this day. And he was like, well, you really should be here. We're going to talk about 401k, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up leaving because I was getting an award for my painting company. I came back the next day, and I ended up finding out that it was 25 grand, which was at that time more money than I had ever had in my whole life. I had more than that, but which was the most I'd ever had in my entire life at one point. And it was a very, very scary decision for me. Right. I went with my girlfriend, who I'm still with now, and we went to lunch. And at lunch, we talked, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I was like, look, I have a degree in construction management, a 2-year degree from Renton Technical College, which is where you guys have your meetings, by the way. Yeah. So that's kind of funny. And I justified the purchase to myself as college for real estate investing. Yeah. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to double down on myself. And if it fails, then I can make that money back, and, it'll be a huge life lesson. But if it works, then it's going to completely change the trajectory of my life.
Yep.
And I did it. So I spent the money, got the backpack, got super excited, was really stressed about how much I just spent. And I said, all right, within 3 months, I'm going to have a flip. I'm going to get a wholesale deal done. I'm going to be killing it, and I'm never going to need to paint again. Boy, was I wrong. It did not happen that fast.
How long ago was that, Jared? How long ago was that?
This was right about 4 years ago. I think it was November of 2013.
That is
if I remember correctly.
That long ago, honestly. 4 years.
No, No, it's not. And it goes by really fast, especially when you're finding something new. And the first year though was a big learning curve. Again, I had never looked at real estate. I didn't know anything about it. So I immediately went into just give me all the information about the industry that I could. I got my real estate license. I didn't even hang it for a year and a half after I got it. I literally just took the course to learn. And it ended up taking me a full year. So, I kind of had to swallow my pride a little bit because I didn't get a deal. It didn't happen as fast as I wanted. I had to go back and run my painting company. My girlfriend told me I shouldn't do that because she thought it would distract me from, my end game, which was real estate. But I did what I had to do. So I went back and I absolutely killed it the next year. I made, again, more money than I had ever had. And now I was comfortable.
Painting?
And
or flipping?
In painting, yeah. And painting. Yeah. Flipping, I'll get to that. I'm doing great now.
Yeah.
It's going really well now. So this is still kind of a long backstory, but I think it does help because people ask a lot, how you get to that point, and it doesn't just happen overnight. There has to be a lot of events that lead up to really turning something like this into a real business.
Right.
And so then after that, after I finished my painting company, that's when I jumped both feet in full time. And that was towards the end of my second year. And now I'll be going into year 5, in November, and it's a full blown business. I have, do you want me to go into that, or are we going to hold that for later?
What was your first deal? How did you get your first deal?
My very first deal was through direct mail. So I immediately started marketing, as soon as I started. And that's one thing that I knew right away, that in order for me to get deals, I have to get my phone to ring. So I started marketing right away through direct mail.
Did you do direct mail with your paint company?
I did a little bit. Yeah, I did a little bit. They did like value saver ads and that kind of thing. But most of my painting company was generated through boots on the ground marketing. We knocked doors, and then referrals and word of mouth. And I use a lot of what I learned from the painting company in my business now. I put signs outside of all the houses. We knock all the doors around every project. I introduce myself to neighbors. It's important to get as big of a, net as you can whenever you're in any area. So again, I was so fortunate that I, fell into real estate the way I did because I was taught how to run a painting company, which translates perfectly into running a renovation company, essentially, right? It's the same idea, but it's on a much larger scale, and I'm spending my own money. But if you just look at strict processes, it all translates pretty well.
Do you hire college pro painters to paint your houses?
No comment. No, I do not. I do not. No.
I got you there.
But yeah. So, but my first deal ever was a wholesale deal, and I only made $1,000 on it. But it was my first deal, and that I did it, and it was scary, and we fumbled through it, and it was a headache. But I got that one done, and then once you can see that it's real, your whole mentality changes.
Right.
And then it's no longer this wishful thing that you think can be done. And then after that point, I think it took me about 8 months or so, I think, to get my first wholesale deal, I think. And then I think I got maybe 1 or 2 other deals done max before I went full time. So I had a little bit of a slow start because I had to continue to make a living.
Right.
And then after I had enough money to be comfortable and not have to worry about paying my bills for a couple months, then your mentality changes, and it's just full-blown work mode.
Well, you're also starting this effort on the real estate business in a market that was getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
Saturated.
Not only saturated, but becoming more and more and more of a seller's market too, right? So it's, if you can succeed in the hot seller's market that we are, kind of peaking at over at right now, right? Imagine when the deals are plentiful, right? Which is...
Yeah, and it's a buyer's market. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm sure that changes things on the other side somehow too, but yeah, So really, so you're going into your 5th year, and you kind of, I don't want to say, that took you 2 years to get going.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It was, I would say it was one entire year of me learning. I probably could have forced myself to try to do it sooner, but I wanted to have a good grasp and understanding of the industry. So my first entire year was learning as much as I could. And I was networking anywhere from 2 to even 4 times a month. And all I was doing was just getting out, meeting people. I went to your guys' event. That was one of the first ones that I found as well, because you guys are awesome at marketing. So I found Seattle Investors Club. I started going to that. I joined meetups. I would go to random meetups. I would just do as much as I could, creating my business, everything. And I did this completely by myself. So I didn't have a partner to delegate any work to either.
Right.
So it definitely took time. But
you got the drive.
I'm not even bummed.
That's a skill set, right? I mean, drive is a skill set. If you have no money, you don't have a license, you're not a contractor, you don't have family money, you can't, drive and hustle is a massive skill set that anybody out there listening, if you feel like you have, no extra tools in your tool belt right now, if you have drive and hustle, that's actually just as good as some of the other ones combined. It's a big deal. And you certainly, Jared, have that. And I know that. I've known that since the day that I met you. I could tell that. So we're so proud
I will say
of you.
Thank you. We're all a big happy family.
Exactly.
I want to say on the note of the hustle thing, though, you're 100% right. As I'm sure you guys both meet tons of people in this industry who teach me, how did you do this? What do I do? And I'm happy and more than willing to help people, but I tell them, I can give you some of my time, but you have to be the one to take the initiative. Right. I can draw you a little dotted map, but if you just get sidetracked at the first turn and then you go back to your old ways, good luck actually turning this into anything beyond, a hobby.
Right. You got to want it, because it isn't going to be easy no matter what. And even once it gets going, there are still dips. It's there's a bit of a roller coaster ride. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, and there's a lot of moving parts that you're not in always control of. And you got to believe in the process and the systems. You got to push through the pain, when that has to do with marketing, I think. Right. So,
I mean, it's everything, and your troubles and different things will be your issues later on. One thing that was a problem now won't be a problem later, or it may not, or it changes. So being a business owner, there's always something that you have to overcome.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna roll down a couple of my questions here, because I could talk to you forever, like nobody else is around, but, and I might. But so what were your 2018 goals for this year, and are you hitting those?
Oh my goodness. So, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, Davey Wild. I don't know if you guys know him.
Know Davey.
His investing company is DW Home Buyers. And I literally was talking to him about this yesterday. And because I work with several people, and I think it's important to set goals with others so you can be held accountable for them. And I set goals this year that were very, very lofty and scared the crap out of me. So what I set at the beginning of this year was I wanted to do 32 flips. I wanted to do, 28 traditional transactions, as in traditional would be a buyer's agent, listing agent, that kind of traditional thing, or wholesale deal. So I wanted to include those as one, but I wanted to, purchase 32. And I wanted to personally buy and own 10 doors. So that was my goal at the beginning of the year, which scared the crap out of me then and still do. I adapted them. What I did, I have quarterly meetings as well with my team so we can actually keep a pulse on these things. I quickly realized that I don't have a big enough team to be able to reach all of these. So what I did is I took a close look at them and I said, okay, well, what are the most important things for me for what I want my business to be doing and where I want it to go? So I immediately said, I am an investor. I'm not a real estate agent. So I chopped that real estate transactions down to almost nothing. I by mid-year, I think I was at like, I don't know, 3 or 4, something like that. Cause I don't count my listings, right? Cause I list my own properties, but those don't count. So I'm just counting things from other people. So I cut that all the way down to, I think, like 6 now. So I said it's something that is attainable, right? And then for my flip goal, I actually pushed that up. I said, you know what, by end of Q1, I was in great shape and my team was like, we can do better than this. So now my flip goal is 40. So I want to have purchased 40 by the end of the year. I won't necessarily have sold all 40, but I'm very close to being on track for that. And so that one I'm very proud of. You know, this is the end of my, I think, second year full-time actually flipping as my primary business. So that makes me really excited for the future. If I can do this in my second full-time year flipping, then, oh man, you know, the sky's the limit.
Right. Especially as the market is changing too, right? You know? Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And then the other thing I did forget to say is I wanted to have 4 units of new construction that I was working on. I forgot that. So between all of those deals, you know, there was 64 transactions, something like that I wanted to, no, 74, I think, if my numbers are correct, which is a lot. And at the time I only had I had just brought on my project manager, and it was just me, my project manager, office manager for the internal team. So those were my goals at the beginning of the year. I cut down the traditional stuff, and then my rental doors, I will have 2 very soon, and I'm just now at the point where I'm going to aggressively start looking to add additional doors on that end of things. So, you know, I fell behind a little bit on those, but I'm not as upset about that, because for me, my primary business is building up this active portion of it, you know, to be able to grow wealth on that side. The rentals will always be there as long as I have the cash flow. And for me, I kind of wanted to wait for something that's happening now in our market, is a little bit of a slowdown for me to try to find better deals within the area.
Right. Exactly.
So,
I mean, I always think about that. If people off like buying this and that, I'm like, really? I mean, are you doing that because you need to feel like you need to buy something?
I love cash.
Feel good about, you know, your business buying something because it hasn't been penciling, right? Or it's hard to make it pencil. Mm-hmm. Are you on the buy holds, I guess I would say, unless you want to, you know, go down somewhere that's a pain in the ass to get to. And, you know, my problem is I'm too lazy. You know, I'm not going to go buy something in you know, down there in like Thurston County when I live in Seattle.
Yeah, no way.
I've actually owned a strip mall. I guess I would say like a 45,000 square foot strip mall in Lacey for years. And I'm like, hell no. I just, you know, I'm not driving down that far anymore. Right.
What's the property management for?
Yeah, but you still got to watch the shop. Even, you know, you still got to go there.
Yeah.
But, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game, though.
Are you when you say you're going for the doors that you want to build your portfolio on that? Obviously, you're probably to the point, I would hope, that you are needing to balance out your income tax problem, generating all this money off your flips and stuff like that, right? So I always find like there's a balance between, you got to own rental properties almost to offset your tax.
Your taxes. Oh
taxes
man,
suck.
That was
right?
that was one of the first things I started to try to hunt down. Is I started looking for places I could put my money to not pay tax on it. When you look at 40% of your income that has to be taxed, that's really sad.
That is, that is bad
oh
news.
my God.
Right.
Yeah.
And people don't think about that when they get started, right?
No, they spend all that money.
Yeah, and they don't realize that you are going to be taxed at the highest tax bracket for yourself. But if you do well, you're going to end up in the highest tax bracket, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to suck, and it's going to make you think like, is it really, why am I doing this? What can I do to, I got to keep some of this, right? What's the point? It's like, are you flipping to then keep as a rental? Are you doing that on the doors that you're picking up?
So that is one exit strategy that I'm implementing now. Most of my projects are selling, anywhere from the lowest is usually maybe like 500 maybe. And that's, I think, even 550 probably realistically. And I'm up to, 1.6-ish, somewhere between there. So most of those don't pencil at rentals, but just with the market shift now, I have a lot of people looking for deals for me. And I said, hey, let's adjust a little bit. I'll take some lower price point homes that don't necessarily pencil as well for a flip. If I don't make, my minimum on a flip, then this could potentially work for a buy and hold for me. I don't have to do as high end of finishes. Right. I can, look at it through a different lens. So that is something that I'm currently starting to implement a little bit more outside of just, really most of the time I'm just looking at straight returns and how quickly can I turn this. And I'm just looking for, the speed of the transaction. Now I'm shifting a little bit for the buy and hold strategy as well.
And are you buying most of your stuff that you're purchasing to flip in King County?
Yeah, so I just about exclusively work in Seattle, to be honest. I have one house in Kirkland. I sold one in Bellevue a little while back. Shoreline. I like to stay within Seattle for the most part. Like you, I'm lazy. I live in West Seattle and I don't want to drive much more than 30 minutes.
Yeah. Right. Well, and also for you, technically, if you go to a house and it doesn't, and for whatever reason, it's too nice and it's not going to pencil as a flip, do you try to convert it to a listing?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I go to appointments, I have multiple outcomes for the seller. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I want to give them an absolute minimum of 3 options, and I win on every single option that I give them, and everything will be tailored to whatever their best outcome is as well.
That is exactly what we do. If everybody who's listening should be listening. But Jared, does one of those options include a listing, right?
Yeah, every time.
Right. So everybody who's listening, you can't do that unless you have a real estate license. Do you feel Correct. That having a license, do you use your license in your, that you use it?
Man. I use my license every single day. It's another revenue stream. And on top of that, it saves me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the year by being able to list my property.
But you have a listing. You do have I saw that you have a listing partner. What is that about? What is that? Just a transaction coordinator fee thing or?
Yeah. So that's Michelle Luxemore. She's actually my project manager. So okay. She's a real estate agent as well. And I mostly just do that to kind of help her. It's kind of, sort of a perk of working with me is like, you're going to be on, 40 transactions over the year and you're going to get a ton of exposure. Right. And so she helps with them. And, when I'm busier, she helps kind of with the listings, but for the most part, she gets a ton of exposure out of it.
Right. I love that. So that's the same thing. I hope you guys are all listening how valuable it is to be in the real estate business and actually have a real estate license. I am probably one of the number one people in town from the investor crowd that harp over and over and over about that. And Jared, from your perspective, I'm just curious, why do you think that investors or people who are flipping homes or even wholesaling, you spend all that money and time and effort marketing, why do they not get their real estate license? After they're spending $25,000 on a course, they won't spend $1,000 to get a real estate license? What's the dealio on that?
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I'm 100% on your side. Like I said, as soon as I dropped the money on the course, I got my license, and it was because I just wanted to learn it. I didn't even think about how valuable it really is, but it's just another tool in your tool belt and it gives you more credibility. So I honestly think one of the only reasons that I think people don't do it is because they spend too much time looking on these forums online about how this is going to hurt you more than it's going to help you, because people do shady things. And being a real estate agent, you have to be held at a higher standard. You can't do maybe some of the, we'll call them creative transactions that people would do wholesaling properties. But in the end of the day, I think it's 10 times more valuable to have the license than it is to, try to do whatever shady things that you think should be done to be able to get a wholesale deal done.
Well, I also think they do it because they go in there and they lowball the shit out of the people. And then they can't turn
and
around
they
in
don't
the same
justify it.
conversation and say, oh, that doesn't work for you. How about if I list it for you? And now it's like a $50,000 higher number. You can't do that. Yeah. That's a whole for another time. Believe me, one of my favorite. But so,
I want to say real quick on that note though. So that I think is one of the biggest reasons that, you guys and myself are able to do a lot more deals, because we go in there and we justify our purchase price. I sit down with them and I'll show them comps. Here's what you'll make if you sell it to me. Here's what you make if you list it. And then, whatever options I give them, and I'll say, they're all going to be different. And the lowest one is what I pay you cash, but that's a convenience fee. It's done. You forget about it and you move on.
Right. Yep. No, we do the same thing. But boy, if you don't have a license, it sure limits you from, it's just, I won't even go into that any further, but, whatever, drop the mic, right? There you go. Mic drop. But, so what's your favorite price point to buy in? Do you feel, because you do enough deals, like there's a sweet spot for Seattle and, King County, which we'd all prefer to be in? Or, I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say that. A lot of people want to do Pierce County, but again, you and me both live up here. We don't.
Whatever county you're in. Yeah. I think whatever county you're in, you want to stay, around the median price point. I think, there's a lot of value in that because, first of all, that's where the most buyers are. Typically, that's where the most inventory is as well. And then I like it better because you're not held. So I try to stay below $1 million most of the time. I will do $1 million plus deals. Once you get much over $1 million, the buyer pool changes. They're a whole lot pickier. They require a lot more things. So, which is fine, but you have to plan for that, right? You need to plan for longer hold times because the renovation will take longer. You need to have much larger budgets for the renovation. So the quality level has to be different. So I try to stay. You want like numbers or just like medium price point wise?
My favorite, you'd like say like I love to buy properties for $550, put 125 in, and exit out at $895.
Yeah, I would say I guess maybe I do a lot of volume, so there's no exact sweet spot, but I would say I'm really happy if I can buy in the 4s and sell in the 7s. If I'm buying in the 4s and selling somewhere in the 7s, then I'm in pretty good shape. Doesn't happen all that often, but I would say mid 4s to high 5s is where most of my deals end up being for purchases, and then I'm selling, low to mid 7s, upwards to $1 million, just depending on, or $1 million plus, depending on the extent of the renovation.
Right. How many projects do you max out at one time? Like you can handle 4 or 5 going at once?
Oh, Julie, I'm better than that.
Yeah.
I think I have 12 right now.
Nice. So and
I'm constantly pushing those.
The crew, that comes down to, you're one of the lucky guys in town that has been doing it long enough and consistently enough then that you have enough contractors to service that. Because I know people that can take on more and are definitely qualified to take on more, have the money to take on more, and have taken on more in the past, but they've almost had to scale back a little bit because the availability of the contractors. But you are always, you have a crew or 2 or 3 that you're using constantly, or are you sharing it with some of your other, you kind of have an office share situation going on, like we said with Davey or whoever. Do you guys share contractors?
No, I don't really. I share subs for sure. General contractors. I have one who's been working with me literally since day one. He did my second flip ever, and I have not had, I would say, a month go by where he hasn't been on anywhere from 1 to 6 projects for me, depending on the size of the project. So for the last 2 years straight. And other than that, I'm in a constant state of hiring. I'm not going to say that I have, 2 or even 2 great GCs that I can just sit and forget. I wish I did, but the reality of the situation is, with the market the way it is, contractors are going to come and go. They chase shiny objects just like we do. So they may work for you for, a year and things are going great. And then they'll get this other opportunity of a bigger job that pays more. and then they're gone. And then you're kind of back to square one looking for more people. So one thing that I always am doing and really kind of am drilling into everyone on my team is we're always looking for some sort of contractor, whether it's an electrician, a plumber, HVAC, or a general contractor. And then recently I got my general contracting license now. And the bigger I get, the more I realize I need to have the ability to take things away when we fall behind. Because when a contractor says they can do everything, they don't necessarily, they may not be able to actually do everything or within that time frame. So I just had a project recently where I took the roof and I took a couple other things away, and I was like, look, you're way behind. So I'm going to go ahead and get this done because I want to get done on my timeline.
Right.
They may not like that, but in the end of the day, it's your money and it's your house.
Right. And do you require them to use your own custom contracts, or do you kind of gotta, right?
Yep. So everybody signs indemnifications. They sign. Were you going to ask that?
Yeah. No. Tell us what is a deal killer with you. What has to happen, and how do you penalize them if they're behind or late?
Yeah. I mean, I will admit that I'm a little bit nicer than I should be on penalizing people, because it's a kind of a tough, sucky conversation to have. But I definitely have done it in the past, and I've fined people thousands of dollars for being way over time on a job, right? So when we sit down, we put together, you sign contracts that say you agree to pay to do it for this much, and then you agree to be done on this date. Just like a lot of other investors, you will get penalized X amount if you go over the date that you agree on. I typically give 4 days to a week-ish grace period, depending on how big the project is. And then after that, I'm like, hey guys, the clock's ticking. Like, you're getting fined each day that you don't get done. And then when we have our sit down meeting, we go over that and we find kind of a happy middle ground, because I don't want to be the guy that, is taking money out of your pocket every time. But they, they also need to realize that it doesn't cost them anything to take longer, but I'm paying thousands of dollars in a mortgage payment. So it costs me more money each day that it goes over budget.
Exactly. Are you, was I going to ask you? I don't know what I was going to ask you. Lost my thought there as I'm just thinking about everything here myself. Have you ever lost money on a project?
I have not. Luckily, I've not lost money. I've had thin deals.
Sorry, Jared.
Yeah, just did it.
I just now Buddy's here, guys. Buddy's here, and he just started growling like somebody's. That's
you
our
didn't like
sidekick.
that, Julie.
Buddy, our
take that back.
Buddy's up growling, looking around like, what the hell is going on? It's okay, buddy. It's just Jared. We want to give him some good luck over here. Relax, man.
Yeah.
Relax, buddy.
Yeah, we're not in the business to lose money. It's not a charity.
Exactly. Are you? How long does it take you to flip a house these days on a standard over tackle? And what's your average budget?
Okay. My average budget nowadays, it's funny. It kind of comes in waves, which is interesting. But up until recently, my average budget has been between about $125,000 and $175,000. I would say most of last year, that was pretty standard budget for me, which sucks because those are huge projects, but that should equal bigger profits. So that was fun, and it got me tons of experience doing really big renovations. But recently I've gotten a lot more.
What's your, like, if you spent $150,000 on a project, on a rehab, do you have like a 50% rule on that? Like you need to make at least $75,000 back, or what was it? Yes. What's your deal?
Yeah, it's not based on my returns.
Yeah.
So it's not based on how much I put into the houses. It's usually a return off of the total project. So usually I want to shoot for somewhere around an 18% ROI on a project. Okay. And that's total for the whole deal, not cash on cash. So that's the whole project budget, all cash in, all cash out. But if I'm hungry for deals, I will do $70,000 minimum is usually what I want to make on a house. just because I know things happen and change. And, you know, if I go way over budget, then you need to have a big enough profit to be able to absorb that. So.
And who's determining the, like, let's say you get a lead and you're walking through the house. Do you have your GC, the guy that's been with you forever, walk through and give you the number? Or are you so skilled enough now that you know, oh, this is going to be about 150? Are you determining that on the walkthrough, or are you having him confirm that?
I bid all of the projects. So I've done enough now to where I can walk through and get a general feel, and I can even just throw out a number kind of from the hip, and I'll be close enough. But I write a detailed budget for every single job, and then I'll make a decision on that. So I don't need to walk a contractor through. I essentially do my own inspection unless I see something really weird and off the wall, or structural issues. Or the one thing that I will bring my team in for is a layout, because in Seattle, or a lot of places with older homes, you'll run into some of the weirdest layouts, and that's a killer for most people. So that's one thing that I'll bring more people in with me for, is to just try to wrap your brain around how to make this a functional home again. Because that's sometimes the most difficult part outside of just bidding and getting a number for it.
Right. And who do you use for that? Do you have like a space planner or a designer or something that you bring in for that? I imagine it's not your general contractor, or is it?
You'd be surprised, actually. So really? Up until I hired Michelle, my project manager, I would just go in. I'm a very visual person, so I was able to get a good idea on my own. And then I would bring my contractor in there, who's an absolute rock star, and he would be able to give me a lot of guidance to help me figure it out. But now when I run into a situation like that, I get my project manager and my contractor, and we all go in there and we'll spend maybe an hour if we can't, figure it out. And if we can't, then we just move on.
Right. I mean, because it usually comes down to like structural stuff, right? I mean, yeah, layout, but confirming that you can take out certain walls and things like that, I guess, too. But awesome, dude. Yeah, it's all good stuff as you get rolling on. So what is your team setup these days?
So we're pretty lean and mean. It's me, my office manager, and then project manager is all we have in the actual office. And then we have all of our contractors. So like I said, right now we have 3 GCs working for us. I'm going to be hiring the 4th next week. And then we have a handful of subs that we use. So that's the construction and office side of things. And then for acquisitions, I'm starting to bring on more people to help me, find deals. I used to source and do everything myself, but you can't be a one-man show growing a real business. So you start reaching out, and I would say I probably have, outside of just the random emails that you get, I'm sure you guys get deals sent all the time, quote unquote deals. I'm air quoting right now.
I don't even look at it.
Half the time I don't either. If it's someone I know, I will, but 90% of the time I look and I just kind of laugh and then I move on. But I'd say 3 or 4 brokers who look for me, and it's amazing when you pay somebody one time, man, they get real hungry and then they start pretty aggressively looking for you. So I'm starting to build out an acquisitions team.
What does that mean when you say looking for you? Are they looking on the MLS because you're too busy to look? Because now there's deals on the MLS, or they're what? Yeah,
MLS or word of mouth. I have people knocking doors for me now. I have just general wholesalers, right? Once people know you're a buyer, then you get on every list under the sun. But now I'm starting to build out a direct team that's going to market for my company as well. So like I said, every house that I buy, we knock all the doors around it. I put signs out. I introduce myself. So that's a huge portion of my business, to be able to keep acquisitions running, at a place that it needs to be. And then, like you said, the MLS, I bought 4 deals off the MLS in the past, I think, 5 weeks now.
There you go, people. It's back on, right? But you got to get your real estate license.
Don't tell them my secret.
Oh, I don't think it's a secret. I wish it was a secret. Is it when you buy those off the MLS? Because obviously, are you? Maybe I won't ask you that kind of a trade secret, so I won't ask you that. I was going to say, are you writing those up yourself? Like, you're representing yourself as JH1 Homes as the buyer or whatever. Do you buy in the name of JH1 Homes if you buy like a traditional listed property, or do you try and buy it in Jared Holland and then quit claim it or do something?
No, everything goes through my entity.
Okay.
Yeah, everything goes through my actual company. And I no trade secret. Yes, I absolutely have purchased homes representing myself, which is one of the most fun and my favorite things is to get a check when you buy your own house. Exactly. That's awesome. I just made $20,000 to buy my own house. I'll take another one. Thank you.
Exactly.
That's great.
Right. Well, I mean, on a flip side, that also means that if you had to compete and you have a license, that you could give that up and it's not going to kill you. You still can get the deal, right? So,
that's another way that you can be competitive, especially if you finance your deals and you are, against an all cash buyer. So, another tool.
Did you hear what he said, everybody? If you're against an all cash buyer, but you have a real estate license and they're using an agent or something and they're not able to take advantage of letting go of the buyer's side commission because they can pay more than you if they're paying cash. If you're borrowing hard money or something, you can offset that. You can, compete with them by giving the listing or the buyer's commission up, right? Because that's what we're saying, I think. Isn't that what we're saying here, Jim?
And that's exactly right. Yep. And I've gotten deals by doing that. It's all about finding out what those sellers' needs are and then, being able to craft whatever offer you can and making it, somehow step above the other buyers. And it's outside of just price also, you got to get creative, especially when the market was a little bit more difficult. Now it's getting a little bit easier to negotiate deals, but, you got to be creative when you're up against a multiple offer situation. And that is a huge help.
Exactly. So do you have actually any employees that you pay a salary to on your team?
My office manager. Yep. She's the only one. And it happens to be my mother, by the way. So nice. We're a family business.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah.
And so how do you pay your project manager?
She is paid a flat fee per project, and then she gets paid bonuses dependent upon profit. And also if we stay under budget and that kind of thing, which almost never happens, but that's one of our goals is to really dial that stuff in a lot more because I want to be able to give her bonuses and I don't want to go over budget, so that would be nice.
Exactly.
But I originally hired.
Go ahead.
No, it wasn't boring. You go ahead.
I was going to say, what part of the process do you do, like of the whole thing? I mean, somebody's got to find them, analyze them, get them under contract, do all that paperwork, close them, do the budget, then, pick all the finishes and all that stuff, and then actually manage the contractor and then sell it. What do you do versus what does she do? Or versus what does office manager, your mom, do?
Right. So I would say I essentially oversee not all aspects. The office side, we'll start with that. I do little to nothing now, which is absolutely amazing because, Julie, as you know, there's a lot of paperwork involved with buying and selling houses. Right. And especially when you're paying contractors and utilities and there's just a ton of paperwork and just back end stuff that has to be done. So that, thank God, I no longer do almost any of, which is terrific in paying bills and that kind of thing. And then for the project management side of things, I go by my projects around once a week, sometimes maybe 2 times a week-ish towards the end of the project, just to really dial in all of the final details and that kind of thing. But other than that, my goal is to only go maybe once a week or once every other week even. And, the longer that, I've had a project manager and she's learned the systems, the better it's getting to where I only really have to manage her and the contractors call her first. And there's the, the orders that, people need to go through before it gets to me, right? I'm not the first call a contractor makes.
Right.
I shouldn't ever be the first call. It should always go through her first and then come to me if there's a question. So So that's it on the project management side. She's kind of the first block for me, and then I'll step in when needed. And then on the design, I still enjoy designing the houses. That's one thing that when I first got into it, I actually really enjoyed, and I had fun doing that stuff until I had 6 going at once, and then my head almost exploded because I was trying to make everything different, and that was really hard. So now, when we have 12 projects, we have design meetings every week, and we have full finished templates where it shows every portion of the house, and we essentially we work through them slowly as we're progressing through the projects. As sometimes they morph and change. And so basically her job is to bring me 3 options. Usually it's high, medium, and low cost options as well, depending on kind of where we're at within the budget. All of them will work within our color scheme and everything. And then, we still build the houses together because it's still pretty intimidating to want to give anyone 100% control on either of those, because if those fall apart, that's how you can just get in an incredible amount of trouble and lose more money than you can imagine.
What on your projects, is there anything that you have like templated for your projects that you do every time? Like we either use this color, the color, or this color for wall paint. We either use these cabinets, or these cabinets. Do you roll like that, like 3 different choices to keep it simple? I mean, you don't customize everything, do you?
So I will say interior paint colors. I have a go-to for interior paint color. Trim is always extra white. Just keep it easy for interior and exterior, unless we want to mix it up and have fun with that house and do something a little different. But I would say that's one thing that we use and repeat almost all the time. And then, roofing color, I just use black. Windows usually are pretty standard. But what I have now is I have a pretty extensive database of past projects and finishes. So if we're kind of in a pickle and we're like, what do we do for this house? And we're like, okay, well, why don't we look at, 8421 9th Ave, and we can see what we did on that one. Like, that house was awesome. It sold way over asking. People loved it. Let's remake this house. It won't look exactly the same because it's a different house, and you can, tweak things a little bit. But one thing I kind of pride myself in is we do a lot of variety. So I'll do anything from, I've done a super duper traditional home in Ravenna, and I've done super modern homes, and we've done the, right in the middle. We kind of let the house dictate the direction that we're going towards to a point. I'm doing a house that I just bought last week from Fixated. Thanks, Tarl and Nate over there, guys. That was built in, I think, 1910. That has these really awesome columns all throughout it. And so we're going to run with that. We're going to keep it the way it is. And we're just going to basically refresh this house and make it, a modern version of a 1910 home, which I'm really excited about because I haven't
why aren't they doing
done anything like that in a while.
Why are they giving that to you?
I think they just have too much on their plate right now. And he said they have more profitable deals. And I was like, well, I'll take it then. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, that's right.
You guys are, they work more down south. This is in Seattle.
Our Seattle community, we're all so tight, it's not that huge of a circle, right? It's big and it seems, but there's really, everybody knows who's doing stuff or who's I can spot the up and comers almost from day one, That's how it feels like. Talk about a great pool of where to find talent too, is all these meetups and stuff like that. But, well, that's awesome. So would you say your favorite part of the business then is, like you said, is it the design part or?
Yeah, I would say my favorite part is, there's a couple favorite parts. I would say in terms of the process, my favorite part is when I take the house right when it's transitioning from a complete construction zone to because most of my projects are completely gut jobs. So you take a house that is disgusting. I just bought a house that had mold all over the walls. So we tear it apart completely. And when it starts looking like a home, like you walk in and the flooring is just in, all the trim is painted and the walls are painted. You have the doors in, you walk in, you're like, holy crap, this place is amazing.
Yeah.
That's one of my most fun parts and seeing our vision come to life. I really love that. And then another very rewarding and fulfilling part is reactions from the neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, I've bought houses that have been raided by SWAT multiple times. And these are in neighborhoods, family neighborhoods, you know, and you buy this house and they come through the open house and they're almost in tears because they have seen what this house has been going through for the past however many years. And you made it a beautiful new home that hopefully a happy family is going to move into.
Right.
So those two are some of the most fun and rewarding parts of this job for sure.
What do you think is the most important thing for somebody who wants to do residential real development, aka flipping, part of the process? You know, you got to get your ARV right, exit value right. You got to get your rehab costs right, your budgeting right there. You got to have good contractors. What do you think is the most important? If you had to pick one as the most crucial thing not to screw up on, what do you think that would be?
Without a doubt, just knowing the numbers.
Right.
Period. You need to, and it's all the things that you just said, which is, you know, it's buying it right, knowing what it's going to cost to fix it up, and knowing what you can actually sell it for. If you come into this, and I've seen people try to sell me houses, you know, Joe Blow down the street sold it for $800. Why can't you sell this one for $800? I'm like, well, these aren't comparable homes at all.
Right.
You know, and one is 2,000 square feet, one's 1,000. Like, they may look the same from the front, but that has a full basement. Right. You know, so knowing your numbers is the most important thing. And, you know, and keeping a pulse on the market, it's important to know, you know, which just falls back to the numbers.
Learning how to comp properties properly is crucial.
Yeah.
Because the exit value, the ARV, dictates what you can pay, right? So it's kind of the tail wagging the dog. So I think we have a great podcast, and even in Seattle Investors Club, I think we have a video training, don't we, Joe, for people who are members of Seattle Investors Club. They can log in and we literally take them through a video of how to comp properties, just like off Redfin or something like that. I think we have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We certainly have a podcast on that too. But even right now, everybody who's listening, it is crucial to be understanding what's going on in the market and how to properly comp the properties. Is there anything you're noticing in the market, Jared, right now? What do you, from your perspective? I've piped off and popped off on, you know, what I think's going on, which I don't think there's no doom and gloom, that's for sure, but there is something going on. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. I feel the same thing as everyone else does. There's no multiple offers anymore. You don't really see review dates. The buyer's fatigue is a real thing. So what I think is we're reaching, you know, sort of a plateau right now. It's a combination of time of the year and, you know, the few things that I just mentioned. But, you know, with that being said, we're still in a great market. And the way that I have shifted my mindset and, you know, business model is I'm just buying even more conservatively. So, you know, back 6 months ago, I could look at a house in a neighborhood that I know, you know, decently well. It doesn't have to be my backyard, but somewhere that I know decently well. And I could see two comps that sold over asking by $80K, you know, $60K. And I would still buy that house. They'd be like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. This neighborhood's hot. You know, these people paid this. But now when I'm looking at my comparable sales, I want to see more than one or two houses that have sold for over asking. I want to see a handful, and I want to see more of a cluster around the price that I want to be selling for. Because, you know, those houses that sold way over asking was kind of during that frenzy time where everyone would get excited and they'd pay way over. So I basically will look at my comps and I'll subtract whatever I feel is right, you know, up to 25,000 or maybe even more if I really feel like it was a fluke on that other house that was sold.
Right.
And then I run my numbers and back into my purchase price.
What I'm telling everybody to do is when you're looking at the comps on the properties that you're using as comps around whatever it is you want to buy, specifically right now, this is only going to be needed for the rest of the year, we'll say, right? Because by the end of the year, everything will have recorded. You know, there'll be enough sales at this new market level. You know what I mean? I think, well, you need to be paying attention, but specifically right now we're in September 7th of 2018, and you might be looking at comps that sold in June, because maybe there isn't enough comps
Right.
around the area. My tip to everybody is that when you're looking at the comps, you need to look and see what list date it was for that comp and what date it went pending, because that's when the offer was made. And if it was made anytime, on or before the first week of June, the market is different now than the time that property had an offer made on it. And it might be different by, 2 to 5%, maybe. But to really pay attention, not when it recorded for sale, but when it got its offer, when it went pending. That's what we need to be looking at. Because like you said, you might be looking at something that closed in the end of June, but maybe it went pending for some reason in the end of May. We were still in the frenzy was still happening, the tail end of it. So by the time we get, where we've had, 4 to 6 months of recordings, as the market is now in full, I think everybody will acknowledge we're in an adjustment, it will be less necessary to do that extra step. But that's what I think. So, well, we're going to get closer to wrapping up here.
I agree.
Hey guys, Joe here. I just want to take this super quick break from the action to let you know something that we have really cool to offer you guys. As you know, marketing is a lifeblood of our real estate business, and Julie and I spend a ton of money sending out postcards and letters to people all around the Seattle area. We've partnered up with YellowLetters.com to get you guys 10% off all of your marketing needs at Yellow Letters. All you have to do is go to YellowLetters.com, and when you check out, use the code Seattle Investors Club, and you'll get 10% off any of your marketing needs at YellowLetters.com. You can send postcards, letters, whatever it may be that YellowLetters.com has, so that you can keep your marketing engine running for a little less money. So go to YellowLetters.com, use the code Seattle Investors Club with no spaces, and get your marketing going today. All right, let's get back to the action.
What's your best source of lead generation? What's your go-to? Is it, I know you said that whenever you get a project, you put bandit signs out and direct knock on all the doors around there and all that stuff. Is that your best source of deals? Or, I mean, obviously MLS is picking up, but we'll put that to the side for the minute.
Okay. Up until recently, so MLS has actually been very good to me recently. But outside of that, I would say, I will say I pretty much stopped direct mail almost completely. I don't really farm quite as much. I wasn't really getting the returns that I wanted, and it was kind of taking more of my time than it was worth. So I sort of stopped on that. So I've adjusted a little bit for my marketing. I would say a lot of them would come from referrals within neighborhood. I literally have neighbors who I've purchased homes in their neighborhood call me now. Hey, I was just talking to Diane down the street. They're considering selling. You should go say hi. Yeah. So, I'm going into year 5 now, and I'm very personable. I meet neighbors. If there's issues, I apologize. I send thank you cards. I give them gift cards. So I make it a huge point to let people know this is, I'm going to be here for a while. Like, this is a business that I'm creating. So I'm getting to the point now, I get a lot more through word of mouth. And outside of that, I told you I have more brokers looking for me. I have brokers are a big source right now. And then just recently I've started to spend a little bit more money on different campaigns. Yeah.
How about Facebook or any online stuff? You do any marketing?
Not enough. So I do actually, again, being around for, a few years now, I actually have generated some leads organically from my websites. But it's a regular topic for me to start pushing more money into Facebook marketing and even Instagram marketing. I want to it's cheap enough to where it's worth it, and I actually have gotten a handful of leads from them. But to be honest, Julie, one of the big problems that I have now is I don't have the time to field the leads, so even if I'm generating these leads, I have to have people who can handle them right away. So I haven't had to push quite as much money into marketing these days, which again is great. It frees me up to do, higher level stuff.
There you go. Awesome sauce. Well, I like your style. I mean, you do what I like about you is that you figured out what works for you and you built it around your company, right? You're not, necessarily following any guru lead. You're letting your business lead you, and you're looking into your business and doing what works for you, which is awesome, rather than just regurgitating what somebody else is telling you to do. I feel like you're kind of making and blazing your own path, even though, what you're talking about isn't rocket science or anything special, but you're doing it consistently, right? So it's not like anybody else can't do this, guys. Everybody who's listening, it's about consistency and about hustle and about going for it. Really, the story of Jared flipping Seattle with Jared Holland is going for it. This guy goes for it. It's called hustle. It's called drive. And then I'd say he's a pretty smart guy on top of that, right? So,
just smart enough.
Awesome. Is there last couple questions? Is there anything that consistently comes up on your deals that's an issue that you're like, shit, here it comes again? Is there, anything that is a consistent pain in your butt?
I would say going over budget is one of my huge pain points recently. Because again, I want to always deliver a very high quality product. So I use sort of expensive materials pretty often. And so now my pain is finding the happy median, right? I can't keep going way over budget. And, there are times the market saves you, but if you continuously keep spending more and more money and you're not getting that return, then, that's something that I have to take a look at internally to figure out. And then, the same thing as everyone else, contractors, finding people who are as hungry as you are that really want to have this be a business, not just a little side hustle,
Do you feel, I don't know why, this is something that I sense because I'm on the ground pretty hard. I do a lot of, fair amount of brokerage, right? I mean, as well. So just dealing with regular people, not just flip people, but also regular brokerage. And I'm sensing that maybe that they are nervous to pay full price, full market for a fully flipped, fully blinged out, no equity left, everything's done house. And I'm wondering if there's any sense, and you're a guy that can test this, in like, let's say you got a one story with a basement or something, don't bling out the basement or leave the bathroom just cleaned up. So those buyers feel mentally that, you know what, if the market goes down a little bit, then I can just refinish this bathroom and I'll get a little of my money back, or I can redo, you know what I mean? So, because the buyer perception in the market is, I think it's going down, right? It might be going down, and my concern is, why do buyers want to pay full price with no equity left for something 100% done? So, when things were hot, I was the one that I like doing those prehabs, right? Almost the opposite of the rehab. Let's just see how little you can do it, throw it back on. And you might think you're only going to make a $25,000 spread, but it turns into a $70,000 spread or something crazy, right? That was kind of my favorite game for a while. And now I'm more into wondering whether there's any sense in scaling off a full flip just because of buyer perceptions. Do you feel that way at all, or not?
Are you
capable? Are you capable of thinking that way? A lot of people who flip like you do aren't capable of scaling back. They just can't do it. That's just not in their MO.
Right. They have the formula and they just hit it and they just rinse and repeat. I would say that I can, and I have done that for sure. I sold a house in West Seattle during summertime, actually, that I didn't finish the basement. And I had so many people be like, why didn't you finish the basement? I was like, it's going to be a lot of work. And I just didn't really want to. Like, the numbers still work at this. And then the buyers were actually really happy for the reasons that you just said. They loved that I finished the first floor. They have the ability to finish the basement later on and add equity and make it their own. So I see the benefits of doing that. Absolutely. And I have looked at houses through that lens. And for me, I'm looking at, the return. Is it going to be worth it for me to do a little bit compared to doing the whole thing? Up until you said what you were saying, I don't work with buyers, and I haven't recently, or I haven't heard anything from a buyer's agent until you just said that, saying that buyers are feeling like there's not going to be any equity left in the house. So,
and I'm not saying that's a general
something to pay attention to.
I'm not saying that's necessarily a general consensus, but I feel that fits in with the entire slowdown, the buyer sentiment that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right?
Yeah. That's a great point. And it's, one thing that I do is, I do my best to adapt as things change. If something's not working, then I'll look at what will work. And I think that's a great way to, analyze properties as well. I may not make, and the other thing about that is it'll be a lot faster. You can get in and out really quickly. Your holding costs are going to go less.
That's why I like the prehab during where everybody couldn't find contractors. I'm like, well, then don't do things that need contract. How easy is it to do countertops, paint, and carpet, and you don't have to worry as much about contractors with that style of model. But I get it, because maybe the risk is the profit margin isn't as high as you guys are used to, but also maybe the risk isn't as high either in a changing market. What we lost right now, Jared, is we lost the reliability and predictability of our market. We didn't lose our market. Our market's still awesome. We just lost the predictability of the market.
Right.
And that's temporary.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you get spoiled of thinking a house is going to sell within a week, and when it doesn't, then you start freaking out. You're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Why isn't this sold yet? And then you kind of have to sit back and relax and like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. It's going to sell unless you just made some colossal mistakes and way overpriced it. But
and
usually
the end of the day, it's way overpricing it. That's really usually what the problem I think more times is. But yeah, you guys all who are listening, make sure that you listen to our podcast. Maybe Joe, you can link it to how to comp and all that stuff for sure, because it's of heightened importance right now, more than as a big topic that everybody needs to school up on. But Jared, my man, you are crushing it, and it is awesome, because you're showing everybody that this is absolutely doable. I don't think we talked about anything here that is rocket science. I just want to again say that I even feel through the screen of my computer your hustle and your drive. And it's that's a big deal. So everybody who's listening, if you don't have a real estate license, that's easy to get. If you don't have every tool you need in your toolbox, you can get it. But for those of you that have hustle, this should be a exciting podcast for you to try and be like Jared, right? Flipping Seattle with Jared Holland. There we go. So congratulations. We're proud of you. I think we even known you for a long time over those 4 years when you were fresh, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. It's been a journey for sure. And I can honestly say I've learned a ton coming to your guys' meetups. And Julie, you and I have actually had several conversations almost to this length even over the years.
Yeah, we have.
It's
and
always
me and
fun
Davey, I've had those same talks with Davey too. So give him a shout out. Give him a high five for me when you see him. So I've had those talks with him. But right on, brother. We love you and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Congrats on your success. And everybody give us a big 5-star review down here for our friend Jared Holland, and we'll talk to you again soon. Joe, hit us up with the details.
All right, guys, if you want to grab the show notes for this podcast, head over to seattleinvestorsclub.com/48, where we will list all of the links that were mentioned in this show, as well as the notes if you'd like to read it rather than listen to it, or in addition to listening to it. And if you would give us a review on iTunes, like Julie mentioned, that would be fantastic. You can go straight to that iTunes page by going to seattleinvestorsclub.com/iTunes. And just so you know, every 5-star review that we get helps us out in a great way. So we appreciate you for doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. We'll see you later.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.